Hello, hi. Phil Mickelson finally made an appearance.
A few months ago, you were reported as describing the Saudis as scary. What did you mean by that? And if they're that scary, why are you here, given that they're bankrolling this tournament?
Now that, my friends, right here, this is how you frame a question. But Phil was coached to get one message and one message across.
Well, certainly I've said and done a lot of things that I regret, and I'm sorry for that and for the hurt that it's caused a lot of people. I don't condone human rights violations at all. I don't think nobody here does. Throughout the world.
None of y'all do. You sure? I find this puzzling because when you are heavily financed by a regime that dismembers a journalist with a bone saw, when you are being funneled by a regime that has an atrocious human rights record, that imprisons gay people, those in the LGBTQ plus community, that imprisons activists, that puts lashes on people in unfair trials, that kills over 80 people in one day, not only are you condoning it, but you are benefiting from it.
I'm certainly aware of what has happened with Jamal Khashoggi, and I think it's terrible. I've also seen the good that the game of golf has done throughout history, and I believe that LIV Golf is going to do a lot of good for the game as well.
A lot of good indeed in Phil's pockets. According to Brentley Romine of the Golf Channel, Phil Mickelson is making a reported $200 million. See, the money is different, and so is Phil Mickelson's attitude.
But isn't there a danger that you're also being seen as a tool of sports washing, an attempt to try and improve the image of a human rights abusing regime through sport, and that ultimately you could be seen as a Saudi stooge, and that could tarnish your legacy? Is that you comfortable with that?
So when facing tough questions, he smiles, and without hesitation, sticks to the script.
I said earlier, I don't condone human rights violations. I don't know how I can be any more clear. I understand your question. But again, I love this game of golf. I've seen the good that it's done.
Clearly, he was coached on two talking points. Discuss how you are not in favor of human rights violations, even the dismembering of a journalist, but also focus on how much you love the game and your passion for the game.
You said something in a Sports Illustrated interview, and you just said it again this morning. What happened to Jamal Khashoggi is awful, but I've seen the game of golf, the good that the game of golf has done throughout history. No matter how successful this tournament could ever be, it can't counteract someone being murdered, can it?
Take a wild guess what Phil's answer was.
Nobody here condones human rights violations.
Sticking to the script, indeed.
And nobody's trying to make up for anything.
But you said those two statements, one after the other, which sort of implies that you feel that one can sort of make up for the other, and one of our colleagues used the phrase sports washing, and that surely is exactly what that's an attempt to do.
There are... the game of golf I've seen unify and bring people together. I don't know how else I can say it. I don't condone human rights violations. Nobody here does. I don't know how else to say it any more assertively.
You were talking about this being good for the game of golf. The general perception is that this is all about the money, money for the players. Can you comment on that? What are your thoughts?
I don't necessarily agree with your premise.
Did you consult any human rights groups? And beyond Khashoggi, what are the human rights violations you're particularly referring to when you acknowledge those?
I think I've addressed that about as thoroughly as I'm going to.
In short, these are just the consequences of your actions. Phil can try to stick to the PR-driven script, but let's be honest. These were fair questions asked by the press, and he flubbed it.
We've got time for about another one or two questions, and just a gentle reminder, there are other golfers at the table.
Even LIV Golf PR were annoyed at the grilling of Phil. To be clear, wrote Awful Announcing's Jay Rigdon, taking $200 million from the Saudi government program designed to help rehab their human rights record is objectively the wrong thing to do. Set all that aside, though, and Mickelson's quotes reveal someone who hasn't even learned the PR lessons he should have learned. In his quest to remain the affable family man most of his public image is built on, Mickelson is instead channeling the remainder of his known persona by risking his entire public image in a doomed quest to pull off an impossible play. When Phil Mickelson gave those comments to Alan Shipnuck at the Fire Pit Collective, what he did in turn was doom many others from joining LIV Golf because it came with paramount condemnation. Because no one should be accepting of a regime that has a fugazi court system with unfair trials that result in lashes, amputations, or even cross amputations. Executions being a commonality, where the country is among the top of the list, imprisoning and punishing activists who demand human rights for the people, where women are continually discriminated against, including laws that ensure they are subordinate citizens to men. Thus, what Mickelson did for the last 4 months was rather simple. He can harness and spout the family image to the press, but in reality, he ran. Don't sugarcoat it. He ran. And now the marathon has ended. Disappearing for months and skipping both the Masters and the PGA Championship to avoid facing questions, then attempting some transparent misdirection by citing his wife, family, and history of a gambling problem, while not even bothering to change his bad faith PR spin strategy, isn't a sign of understanding or personal growth. It is cowardice. Or as one outlet calls it, greed.